The constitution was necessary because of the diversity of the state. And the function of the constitution was to bring the people together, and this is what Ikhwan al-Muslimun couldn't get into their stupid head. And I choose my words with care, this stupid head. They brought a constitution to Egypt which divided Egypt as Egypt had never been divided before. And if today they're reaping what they foolishly sowed themselves. I don't think they'll ever see the sunshine again in Egypt. They had their chance and they lost it. The same thing can be done in Syria. And that is that you invite to Russia. It doesn't have to be the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It could be a non-governmental body. You invite to Russia all those units of Russia, all those groups in Russia, in Syria, who are in opposition to oppression, in opposition to Zionism, in opposition to NATO, in opposition to what happened to Libya. And the purpose of coming together is to forge an agreement which will be mutually acceptable, which will recognize the rights of all parties and establish the political equality of all parties. And so the Shia would be there and the Sunni would be there, and the Christians would be there and the Jews would be there and the Kurds will be there. And when you forge that agreement of all agreeing to live together in harmony on the basis, of course, a power sharing agreement, then perhaps the Russian government can intervene and try to get a Bashar Assad who I'm sure will be happy. I'm sure he'll be happy to embrace such a solution, because all that he has at this time is the military option. That's all. And so you can save Syria from a pending Shia-Sunni civil war. Yeah. This is a role waiting for Russia.
I have a question.
Yeah.
From your opinion, Dajjal is a personal figure, historical, or some spiritual reality?
Let the Prophet answer. The Prophet, Allah's blessings be upon him, described him as Al-Masih al-Dajjal, indicating that he is someone who would attempt to impersonate the Messiah. The Messiah is flesh and blood.
Yes.
And the Messiah is a human being.
Yes.
Messiah ate food. So Dajjal, if he does not appear as a human being, no one will accept him as the Messiah. Yeah.
Yes. And what about such figures? What do you mean? The connection between Mahdi, the figure which the Orthodox starets, elders tradition call the last Tsar or last emperor, and a very obvious figure in European and especially Roman Catholic eschatology, as which is called the Great Monarch. Very obvious figure, because a very ambiguous figure of the Great Monarch. And what's the connection between these three eschatological figures? The Islamic Mahdi, the Russian last Tsar, and the European, especially French, Great Monarch.
I have adopted a policy of restricting myself to attempting to explain only Islamic eschatology, and I have never encroached upon. Even when I know what the Christians say, I have not spoken on it, because I prefer that the Christian should himself explain his eschatology. And when we come together, I hope that we can forge a Judeo-Christian-Muslim dialogue, eschatological dialogue. Then all three would be able to present their eschatologies, and we'll be able to then see the similarities between each other. But I'm going to have to step back into history for a moment. That we do have in the Quran the figure of John the Baptist, and he is linked to Jesus. It is when we go to your sources, then we learn that when Jesus returned to Jerusalem as an adult, he went in front of John. And when John saw him, John said, "Here he is, this is the man you've been waiting for, this is the Messiah." The divine wisdom is at work in establishing positive identification through this method. It follows therefore that when the Messiah is to return, there should also be a repeat for positive identification. Our eschatology says that the Messiah is going to return in Damascus. Number one, the head of John the Baptist is buried in a masjid in Damascus, according to our sources, the Masjid al-Umawi in Damascus. But number two, he returns to Damascus because the Imam is there in Damascus. And when he comes down from the sky with his hands resting on the wings of two angels. No, I should not say the sky. The Quran speaks about 7 parallel universes, or samawat, beside the material universe. These 7 parallel universes are not spatially located one after the other. They are alongside each other, parallel. So you can step out of one and step into the other instantaneously. And so it is in the samawat, or the parallel universes, that he is located these last 2,000 years. Now, heaven is something else. And it is from the samawat, or the 7 parallel universes, that he comes down into our world of space and time, with his hands resting on the wings of 2 angels. When he comes down, the Mahdi would see him and say, "Here he is. This is the son of Mary." And history repeats itself. Positive identification. The Jewish scriptures speak about a second person beside Jesus, who is going to rule with Jesus. And I am going to be waiting with great anticipation to learn about the Christian eschatology from this part of the Christian world. Yes.
Thank you.
Are there other questions, suggestions?
First of all, thank you very much. Very interesting to listen to, especially your vision and your version of eschatology. Here are some questions. 2 of these questions comes from my friend. He's well-known writer and philosopher And the third question will be mine.
So we're going one at a time? One at a time?
По одному.
Yes. So the first question is, how do you estimate the historical role of Mu'tazilites in Islam?
The Mu'tazilites. The Mu'tazilites.
Yes. And second question, is there any foundation, is there any reason in modern Islamic world for occurrence of neo-Mu'tazilism?
Of?
Мунтазализм?
Mu'tazilism, neo-Mu'tazilism.
Может, сначала по-русски озвучить, а потом Му'тазиля уже будет более четко. Значит, я хотел бы знать, как вы относитесь к исторической роли мутазилизма?
Мунтазилизм.
И второй вопрос, существуют ли сейчас в исламском мире какие-нибудь основания для того, чтобы возник неомутазилизм? Спасибо.
Are there in Islamic world tendencies like neo-Muntazilism?
Mu'tazilites, yeah. This belongs to a branch of knowledge called Ilmul Kalam. Perhaps can be translated as theology. It is the effort to bring about a rational interpretation or explanation or exposition of the faith. Is the Quran created or is it uncreated? Is the relationship between God and creation, are they separate from each other or are they identical with each other? I have not been persuaded that these are subjects that I should direct my attention to, although I did study philosophy and I did study Ilmul Kalam. And so I'm sorry I don't have an answer for this question, because I'm just not persuaded that it has any abiding importance at this time. What we do have at this time is a Salafi movement, which is the mirror of European Protestantism. It is Protestant Islam. It lives by the book, it lives by the text, and it interprets the text literally. The only time that it will accept or admit of a symbolic interpretation of a text is when God or His Prophet have so interpreted it. I give you two examples. A prophet said that Dajjal will ride on a donkey, and the donkey will travel as fast as the clouds, and the donkey will have his ears stretched out wide. He did not explain anything more.